myself out.
I am afraid of...
I'm terrified and paralyzed by...
I am deathly afraid of...
Welcome to the Sum of All Fears podcast with your host, me, Ryan Perrio. Hello and welcome to the Sum of All Fears podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Perrio. This week, my guest is Kelly Archibald, host of the Qavah the Podcast, a podcast about overcoming extreme difficulties. There are some amazing stories in this podcast. Check it out. Qavah is Hebrew for come together. And so it's a very fitting title for the podcast. It's a very interesting and fun podcast, listening to these people's stories and what they've gone through and how they've come out the other side better, and it's just amazing. And so there'll be a segmented story, so check out her podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. In this episode, we talk a little about her podcast, then we get into her fear of sharks, which takes us on an interesting turn around to other fears that may be the root cause of her being afraid of sharks. So let's get into my interview with Kelly Archibald. All right, we're here with my guest, Kelly Archibald, host of Qavah the Podcast.
Hi, Ryan. How are you?
I'm doing great. You are the host of Qavah the Podcast, which is almost like you have it's almost like a mini series of a podcast. So you take a story and it's almost broken down, so you have to keep coming back for each installment of the story. Like, I was listening to the story last night of the man who broke his back and became a musician. I think it's your latest episode.
Yes. Robert Miller is, I think, who you're talking about. Yes. And people just tell their life stories. And so some people tell their life stories in not a lot of words, and some people have a whole lot of words. So it just depends on how long people take. We've had people talk for 12 hours, literally, and we've had people talk for 30 minutes. So we just kind of let people share what they want to share, and then we take that and put that into kind of a biography of their lives. And so Qavah means wait in Hebrew, and so a lot of people have had to wait for good things to come. We've had one of our first guests survive the Rwandan genocide, and so obviously she had to wait for a lot of good to come, because they're just the upheaval of her family and her country and all of that has been crazy and very destructive. And so, but now she wants to help the mental health of her community, her Rwandan community. And so, I've gotten to interview amazing people. I've learned so much. I didn't know anything about the Rwandan genocide or about Iran or El Salvador. And so some of those war-torn countries, I've gotten to get a very real perspective on government, which I'm not really into government, but kind of how that affects people on a personal level. And so anyway, it's been super fun. I have enjoyed it so much.
And it shows. Like, it's almost like you're doing an audio PBS almost, because it's very...
Right.
You perfectly come in and out with your narration, because you'll have little segments where you kind of narrate and let's fast forward to all the stuff, and then back to the and it's just seamlessly like you float back into the interview, which I can't imagine, because I've just started this podcast and I can't imagine trying to edit that and back and forth. And
well, I'm not good at any of that. I have help me, because that's not my thing.
Yeah.
Thank you. You're sweet.
But I was just admiring that as somebody that now does podcasting. I'm like, oh, it's amazing that they're able to stop, push it about 30 seconds down,
right,
insert little, narration, pop back out.
Thank you. Well, I don't do that. So Douglas, who does that, and she's amazing. So thank you.
And so what inspired you? Like, was there like a certain story that you heard pre-podcast that inspired you to say, I want to do a podcast and share this?
Right. What happened was we would go to an in-house treatment facility called Sundown Ranch, which is for young people. They've either been sentenced or they can voluntarily be there. So we would go down there, and my husband would tell his story, and the children all would respond. And so I was like, because my husband's story, it's on the podcast. He has 7 episodes. So anyway, it was, a lot of mental health issues, abuse, and eventual murder. And so the kids all would go up to him because he offered them hope, because a lot of them came from situations like that. And I was like, oh, wow, I never really put 2 and 2 together that his story really could help other people. And then we went to our congressman's funeral. His name was Ralph Hall, and they told a lot of stories that he would tell. And I was like, I never heard him tell these stories. And he was a great speaker. And I was like, that makes me sad. I would have loved to have heard him say it. And then a friend said, have you listened to this podcast? And I was like, what is a podcast? I didn't even know what it was. It was it was S-Town. Have you listened to that?
I have not gotten to S-Town yet.
It's, it's on NPR, and I listened to the whole thing. It's like 7 hours. I just binged, and it was fascinating to me. And I was like, I'm going to do this. And so then I just asked, I asked John DeFore if he would be interviewed, and he recently passed away. He taught Miranda Lambert and Casey Musgraves guitar and songwriting, and he was in Vietnam. He had a life of music and other than just that, but he anyway, so he talked for hours, and then I was like, well, what do I do with this? I didn't know what I was doing, and so then I got help because I really had no idea. And then just other people that we've been able to connect with. It's been amazing. So that's how it started. It all just kind of fell into place. So,
because I was just fascinated. I was like, somebody had to have a story that just pulled you in, and you're like, why doesn't anyone else have this story? Why am I hearing this secondhand?
Yes. And I do feel that way about a lot of people. It's because people have amazing stories that really inspire me. And so then I had a friend who was a therapist, and she said, people can borrow hope from other people's stories. And so that's kind of a tagline we went with, because that's really our goal is, if suicidal, they'll be able to borrow hope from these people who've gone before them and been able to, overcome. And not that anything's ever easy, because when you've gone through difficulties, whether it be war or trauma or whatever, you kind of live with that. You walk with a limp, but, you're able to live a functional life, whole life. So that's our desire. I always envision people in the middle of the night who were sad or whatever, and, that they could listen and go, okay, things can get better. And that's our desire for people.
That's awesome. It's because of your relationship with your husband and all the inspiration he's able to provide. It's definitely, you can see the need for it. Sometimes it's hard to see the need when you're just in your day-to-day life in your own, I guess, bubble.
Right. I had no idea that it was anything. So anyway, I got a clue.
That's awesome. So you just try to break up the segments and just, I believe it goes for the longer people anyways, at least, that have a lot to say. It's like, you just kind of break it to early, middle, and where they are now.
And we don't ask very many questions. It really flows really well. It always does for some reason. But yeah, we just kind of start with first memory and up where they are now and kind of the reflection.
So you've kind of inspired me to do my podcast, because you were already doing your podcast. So I believe, because you came to, I believe you're a fan of Leanne Morgan, and I was on that show with Leanne. And so we kind of connected there. And
you are so funny. You're funny in everything.
Well,
you're funny. You're funny. So I thoroughly enjoyed you. I thought you were a hoot.
Well, thank you. I pride myself on being a hoot.
I sound like Leanne Morgan.
Yeah. You're from Tennessee? there's definitely, like I said, I felt like she should be on TV. That she could be like, when I look at CMT or the whatever it used to be the Nashville Network when I was a kid.
Okay.
There's like I feel like she could be their talk show host.
I know, and everybody would talk to her.
Yeah, I just think she's such a fun character, like because she's so wholesome and unaware, and so I believe that anybody that come on, she's like almost mothering. It's like talking to your mom.
Yes, I agree. But that was a fun night. That was pre-COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the good old days.
Yes, it's definitely, like I said, it's definitely changed, and with COVID, that's why I kind of really is like, okay, we can go ahead and do this. Like I had all the equipment and everything, and I just was like, okay, let's work up the nerve to ask people for interviews. It's something other than comedy. Like I didn't want to do comedy podcasts. Like I wanted to do some kind of interesting conversation, but not base it on just comedy.
Right.
And so I went with, one of my favorite things to discuss is what people are afraid of, because it's always such a, I would say, like, aha moment, like for everybody, like, oh, you that, like it's, people are always some people have an interesting fear, and you're like, how did that happen?
Right. Yeah.
And so your fear is based on one of my favorite movies of all time.
Well, when I was so when I was a little girl, when I remember I was like 3. So I love Jacques Cousteau.
Mm-hmm.
Cousteau and all of that. And I thought that was wonderful. And then when I don't know how old I wasn't very old. But Jaws was like huge, and everybody went to see Jaws, and scared the bejeebies out of me. Like, so scary. I'm so scared of sharks now. And still to this day, I don't like I like the ocean. I love the beach. But like the thought of like being out there and drifting, no, that's just not for me at all. So I don't like that. And anything touching my feet in the water creeps me.
Okay. So you're stand by the beach, not get in the water.
Not a get in the water person. There's another thing that I thought of that I'm afraid of, and I'm kind of not anymore. But when I was 3, yet again, my sister's class went on a field trip to a park, and I went with her. And I remember this so vividly. This little boy was swinging, and a Doberman Pinscher, which, they can be super sweet, but this one wasn't. It was biting at his heels. And so the owner told him to jump out of the swing, and he did. And the dog attacked him. And I remember it ripped the whole side of his face off. It ripped the back of his neck. Like one of its teeth went down his ear. And I just remember my mom put cloth diapers on him. And we took him to our pediatrician, was down the road, and we took him to our pediatrician. Obviously, he had to go to the emergency room. And then he was in kindergarten. He was 5 in kindergarten, but then he was in the hospital so long that he was in my grade after that. So I was scared of dogs for a really long time, but I'm not anymore, because I'm around dogs so much. So
that's intense. Like, to see that happen.
And I remember it. Like there are certain pictures that I have in my mind of what happened. I so remember the cloth diapers on his face, because I was like, that's weird. That's not where diapers go. Like all that, making sense of such a weird moment. So that was, but I did dogs were very scary. And still, if they're like a pack of dogs and they're real big, I can get scared of that. But the shark thing, just that doesn't go away. So whatever you traumatize your children with, it sticks with them, people.
So do you blame your parents for taking you to Jaws? Is that what I'm hearing?
No. It's like, it was huge. Everybody wanted to go, it was just so huge. And now it's not that scary of a movie. And the Jaw, it doesn't. But when we went to like, I don't know where that was. I don't think it's at Disney. Is it at the other one? Universal? Right. And like going through all of that, that was scary too. It's like, I know that's mechanical, but oh my goodness, that's crazy.
And it's just it's such an amazing film because it's such an adaptation, because Steven Spielberg hated the way the fake shark looked.
Right.
So he made it even more intense by just having just the anxiety of not seeing it.
Yes. Yes. That's so, and that opening scene, that's what gets you, I think. For me, it's just like, everything's fun and wonderful and like la la la. And then you get out there and, something kills you. And who wants that to happen?
Yeah.
I don't go very far in the ocean.
Okay. So have you seen sharks at the aquarium, or is that like a no-go as well?
I can see the shark. I mean, they can't get through the glass. Or like at the Dallas World Aquarium where you're like under them, that's kind of creepy.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have any huge, I guess, paranoia. I don't know what that would be, about seeing them in other. You know what I think it is? It's just the unknown. Mm-hmm. Like I know, like if I'm walking under them or they're in a container, I know that they're not going to be able to get me. But when I can't see the bottom of the ocean, or kind of like you don't know what's underneath you, or you don't know how far you're going to go, or if you're floating out there. And I've never been in a situation like that. And I will say, like my middle child was like loved the ocean and had no fear and would just go way, way, way out and would scare me to death. And I hated that. It was like, get back here. You are going to get eaten, and make all my fears come true. So being a parent at the ocean is super scary, especially when you're already scared of sharks and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Did he ever like taunt you with that? Like just like drop into the water or anything?
Oh, my kids never listened to me. They just would, they would just go and nobody paid attention except for me. I'm here fretting and freaking out, but nobody cares. So whatever.
That's how you get them out. Just guilt them back out of the ocean.
You know what? They just got hungry or something, and that's the only reason they came back. It wasn't because of me.
So what about lakes? Is that still kind of...
That's the same, because you know what? Alligators, they just got an alligator out of this lake over here, and it was big. And I don't like that either. And snakes, that's another thing. Ooh, here's another story. When my dad was little, they would go swim in creeks. And so they were all running to swim in a creek one spring. And the first person who jumped in said, hey, don't come in. There's barbed wire in here. And it was a nest of snakes, of water moccasins, and he died. So, lakes, although, no, I'm not into any of that, because you don't know what's underneath you yet again. I think that's my theme, Ryan. I think it's like not knowing what's underneath me is my fear, really.
Yeah. So it's almost like a control thing. Like you have to know and be sure that it's safe.
Yes, that's probably true. I have to know that it's safe before I can put my toe in. And those things you have no idea, especially in Texas, on the Gulf Coast. You can't see the bottom. You have no idea. Or any of these lakes around here. I have no idea what's underneath me. And it may just be grass or seaweed touching me, but it may be something that's going to kill me. It's the unknown.
Yeah.
So
how do you handle that? Like you just avoid, you don't try to, I guess you're not trying to conquer it for the most part.
Gosh, no, I can't. I'll get in a boat and I might get in the water out a little bit, but I don't really have a huge need to conquer that. I am, I'm okay if I die and never go out in the middle of the ocean. I'm really okay. No, I've never been on a cruise because I might get stuck out in the middle of the ocean. So I might have some work to do, Ryan.
So cruises are also out. Like you just don't want to be stuck, or the potential of a cruise, like either one.
In the middle of nowhere, because I've watched all those movies. I watched Titanic and all the movies where you're stuck out there. Of course, they didn't get eaten by a shark. They got something else. But yeah, that does not appeal to me whatsoever. I just don't like the unknown and being stuck. I wouldn't go into outer space either. Would you go into outer space?
Like if it was a last resort, maybe, but I'm kind of a homebody, and I'm sure it looks cool and everything, but I'm just not sure what the goal is of space.
I love if it was a last resort, like we don't have anything on Earth and we have to go to Mars, then okay, I'll go to Mars. But other than that, I don't really, I'm not into that. And see, yet again, movies are a huge influence when you think about people floating out in outer space and there's nothing to tether you, or that's just horrible. You're going to get sucked into a black hole, right?
Maybe. I mean, it is just a large vacuum is what space is. There's like no air or anything.
See, I like air. I like breathing, and everything's stuck together. Like I don't want to disintegrate. So that wouldn't be my thing. So those are, I don't really try to overcome those fears. Like being scared of my kids, of course, I'm better now that they're older, but when they're little, I was scared of everything, scared of their dying. And I remember when my son was little, school shootings started, and it would just be like you hear a siren and you're thinking, oh, there's a school shooting. Or it's like those fears of protection. And of course, in our society today, golly, we have so much of that has happened for those. I don't know how old you are, but my children's generation, they have experienced so much in their little lifetimes. And I guess it started with the school shootings, and then, we have September 11th, we have, pandemic, all of these things that were so disruptive has, I was fearful as a parent for my children to be protected when they were away from me. And, it's just, there's so much. Now that they're older, it's not, I think, okay, they can probably take care of themselves, hopefully. But when they were little, you just think, oh, that's so scary.
I'm like nervous if I even had kids, because I just don't know I wouldn't know how to handle social media as an adult, because I grew up with it. Like, I don't know how already having it, how to groom a child to be on social media and what to say, what not to say. Like, it's so much, there's so much there of just even that of just, this is what you need to have for your online presence.
Yeah. Now, my middle child, who was the one that went out in the ocean, had no fear, also was probably my first child to dive into social media. And she said people were so horrible to her as a child. And we, you have limits and boundaries, but I mean, like Facebook, anything where people can bully and say horrific things to you. And I had no idea that was going on. I told her, I said, I remember your face would look funny sometimes, like real sad. And she was like, yeah, some people said some horrible things to me. And she said, I don't know if I'm going to let my kids be a part of that, because that's just, it really was destructive to her. It really hurt her feelings, and it just breaks your confidence as like a teenager or whatever. It's ridiculous that strangers could just come in and say horrific things to you, which that's new in a society too. Like I might be able to write a note and say, hey, Sally, Ryan's shirt is ugly or whatever, but I'm just giving it to Sally and it's on a piece of paper, rather than putting it for the World Wide Web to see.
Yeah, but it's such an instant gratification, I guess, system that it's set up to, in the moment, I'm going to get 20 likes by tearing this person down. And so that's, as somebody that was bullied a lot, like, people didn't say it online. They just said it to me. And so then I would just be neurotic and just, walking down the halls, like, with the scarlet letter of people telling me what I look like, and that, both of those are equally destructive, but that's easier because they can wear a mask. It doesn't have to be, they don't have to reveal if they're a co-student or anything. Mm-hmm. They can just make up something, come at you, and then just sit in the shadows.
Right. Yeah. Being vulnerable is very uncomfortable. And especially when you are honest and then people stab you and are ugly. And anyway, so that's hard. It's, I wish we had I wish people were kinder. So, and it weren't reinforced so much. Like you said, you get 20 likes if you're ugly, but nobody really cares if you say something nice.
Yeah. It's just, or, maybe they do. It's just, but it's one of those things of, it can go either way. So why, so if you're unafraid to push, those boundaries, then you're going to go for it to just try and see if people will like you because you're insecure. So you're going to use that as a weapon.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's all I can, gosh, I have a lot of fears now that you're a therapist. Thank you for unpacking this.
Well, yeah, and that's why it's kind of why I chose what I did, because it's like there's nobody else is kind of actively doing this kind of podcast, but at the same time, 99% of the population is afraid of something. And so it's always interesting to find out what fears are out there.
Yeah. And, I think that obviously, my most recent episode that I released, her name is Dr. Erica Steele, and her mom had bipolar and multiple personalities. And so now she has a holistic family practice where she, targets helping people have healthy lifestyles and healthy patterns. And, I think that when you grow up that way, you're, how you're wired and how your brain functions and your thought process goes to negative things and fear. You just automatically go there. And so I think that learning to reframe your thoughts is so huge and try to overcome with that. And have you watched Maid, MAID on Netflix?
I have not.
Okay, it's so disturbing. I mean, it's not disturbing, but it's hard for me to watch because the mom has mental health issues and there's abuse and there's trauma. And so just to see that in a real situation and how scary things can be, it's hard to, it's been hard for me to watch. Of course, I'll watch the whole thing, just because it's super good. It's just, operating out of fear is, I think that's what a lot of us do. We just, you try to do things that help you not be afraid. And so, rather than unpacking and going, what am I really afraid of? And what's my core issue here? So I think that, I have operated out of fear, especially when my kids were little, it's just like as a young mom, you just want to protect them and for them to be okay.
I think that just never goes away, though. As a parent, like even now, there's still a little bit of worry because they're out of your domain.
Yeah, but you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't know what they're doing out there. Once they're out of your, your little umbrella, you just are not aware that they're in danger.
But you also, as a parent, you've equipped them with the skills to, I guess, make those choices and, go through life with, the values.
Hopefully, and hopefully the people are safe, that they're around,
Mhm.
and you have no protection over that. So you trust that it's going to be okay.
Yeah. Then you'll have grandkids, and then you'll be able to spoil them.
I want to get a swing set just in case I ever get great. I don't have a swing set right now, but so they'll want to come over to my house, whatever to bribe them.
Like how you're already advantageously thinking of how to bribe.
Yes, because you just never know. You want it to be fun at your house.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? I don't want to have a stuffy grandmother house where you can't touch anything. I want to be a fun house.
Well, maybe, I guess you won't be taking them to the beach. I guess that's not where you'll be taking them.
Well, I'll be super particular. I've already watched those young moms on the Instagram who have all the beach things set up for the babies. So I've got that in my toolbox. So I'll just follow them. They're smart. The young moms are super smart these days. I was not that smart.
Well, I think people just learn, and when you're a young mom, I think you also have you have the, I guess, advantage that you have your parents also to lean on as well.
Absolutely. But yeah, I could probably take them to like Carlsbad. I think that's pretty safe beach. We go there quite a bit. So I could do that, but there'll be limits. And then, if there's a lot of adults watching, then I'm okay with that. So, but just don't go far in the ocean.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll probably get a grandkid that wants to swim to the Cuba or something.
Yeah. But I mean, you'll also have your child there worrying the same as you are.
Exactly. It's like, welcome to the club now. So.
Because, yeah, it's easy. I think as you get older, you kind of understand what your parents were trying to do. Like, you can kind of see their motives and intentions versus when you're young and it just seems like it's, yes, you want to hang out. No, you don't. Okay. Drawing conclusions from that. Like, okay, you don't want to see me this weekend. Obviously, it's something you don't want to see me, period. Because you're a kid, you kind of have those, like, I guess, snap, complete decisions.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, yeah, and we're egocentric.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's about me, when you're growing up, and that's just, appropriate developmentally until it gets to a certain point, that you're not egocentric anymore.
Yeah. So we've kind of gone from sharks to the unknown, that it's the unknown, that they're just metaphorical sharks and swimming around.
Yes, there are metaphorical sharks. Yeah, that's a good point. Always. And you never know. Like, okay, this is off topic probably, but there's an older person that we know that shared recently that their wife was murdered by a serial killer. His name it's the one up in Washington.
Oh, the I-5.
Ted Bundy.
Okay.
Is that his name? His wife was murdered by him. And it's like, I just have no idea. Like, that really happens to like normal people that we know.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, there are sharks out there all among us, and that's scary too. And I'm like, please don't let my children get involved with someone like that, who obviously had the ability to appear attractive to people.
Mm-hmm.
That's a shark right there. Because, people didn't know this, the serial killers, you don't have any idea that that's what they're doing, because they're all nice and get you in their trap somehow. That's another thing, an unknown shark out there.
Yeah. I never thought of, like that as being potentially prey for any kind of thing. Just, even in human life, just being walking prey.
No. Who thinks of that? Like all of us over here who are just la-ti-da, we have no idea that that's, what someone's thoughts could be. That's just, because it's not within our value system to think that you would do that or want to do that, want to harm someone else at all. So, yeah.
And it's for ego, I guess, purposes. Like it's to satisfy, I guess, their ego that they can hurt you and get away with it.
That's so weird. That's a whole nother ball game that I don't want to be a part of ever at all.
So as a parent, you said you've gone through the whole gamut of that. How do you kind of, I guess, balance that fear of unknown? Is it just you just rely on the fact that what the values and just the life that you've provided, and I guess inspiration, just kind of keep it at bay?
Yeah, and I pray for my children like crazy. I just have to trust that God is good and He has good stuff for them, and pray that they'll be protected, because I have so little control over things. Just, you think of, obviously we had a pandemic, and when that struck, my daughter was in California, my youngest, and we had no idea what was going on initially, and so her school closed down, so she had to come home, and when she's flying home, I'm like, stick Neosporin up your nose. I don't know, we have no idea what this is or how this is getting it, how this is spreading, and obviously she wore a mask, and then but I'm like, I want you to do more than wear a mask. I want you to protect yourself as much as you can, because we just didn't have any idea. So that's all been nuts.
Yeah. I just saw the door open. I don't know if a dog came in.
The dog came in, yes.
That's how you handle your fear. You just let your dog.
Yes, my dog. You know what? It's great therapy. They should be in all nursing homes and things, because petting your dog is a good thing. That's all the things, all the unknowns, like a pandemic and wars and all that stuff. Afghanistan. You don't know what's going to happen next, and so you just have to. It's too big. I can't handle it. And I trust that my children, do have enough sense to make, wise choices.
Yeah, that they've seen you make you've been with them at these crossroads before, and you've told or shown or given them, okay, this is the choice you usually make. If you make the other choice, these are the consequences.
Right.
And based upon the consequences of each choice you make, I have faith that you will make the right choice.
Right. Hopefully. Oh, of course, growing up is hard.
Well, I mean, you're going to make the wrong choices, but you also need to learn, okay, with wrong choices, this is what comes with that. And, I think that it's a very humbling, like you said, it's egocentric, but nothing humbles you more than a wrong choice.
Absolutely. And the consequences of that, boy, that can rock your world big time.
Absolutely. So. But you kind of, lets you, it's a very good learning tool, because you learn from that to, okay, I understand now. Okay, some of these choices, because it can be easy to make the wrong choice when there's no consequences and be okay with it. But once you have these negative impacts, that you kind of, that, like you said with the Jaws movie, like they stick with you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that people are often they're either road trippers or book learners. I was more of a road, a field tripper, like you go, you have to learn for yourself. Yeah. You're not going to learn parents. You're going to go on your field trip and run around and do all the bad things. And then you get stuck with consequences. And life is a very good teacher in those things. There are certain people who just listen to their parents and do the right thing. But I wasn't like that. My husband wasn't really like that. Well, he was probably more of a book learner. He just had a lot of dysfunction. Mm-hmm. But anyway, but yes, that's it's a hard teacher. Some of those consequences are intense.
Yeah. Like my mom told me that when she was younger, she picked up a hitchhiker because she lived in Beaumont and she like was driving to Houston or something. She said she picked up a hitchhiker, and I'm like, what? I just couldn't process like the fact that you would, somebody that took care of me would pick up a stranger. And she's like, he got really weird, and she said she like went to a bar and said she was going somewhere and then ran out to her car and drove away.
Yeah, that's scary. No, I wouldn't pick up a car. I did. Okay, I have blonde hair and I'm blonde. I did give somebody, like a worker on the side of the road, my driver's license one time information. They like stopped me and they're like, give me your driver's license. And so I did. And then they started calling me all the time and at my house. And my parents were like, what in the world? I was like 16, clueless.
Mm-hmm.
But like that was authority to me. And so I just did it. And it's just some creepy guy that wanted to call me. But you learn those things. My parents were like, don't ever do that again. If it's a police officer, okay. I was like, okay, construction worker, no. Police officer, yes. Okay, got it.
Just the boldness to just stop a stranger.
Yeah.
Like that's just that blows my mind too, to have that kind of nerve to even ask for that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I know. It's just, I don't know. People operate differently. But your mom, yeah, hitchhiker. That's
yeah. I was like, I could not be here right now because
right.
You made that choice, and I was like, I don't. You're just a you're a young person. You're trying to be nice, and it's like, yeah, being nice. You can be nice, but at the same time, it's like you could have been. It's just hard because the world makes it so hard to be nice.
Okay, I'm going to go to something else. Being a parent of, I have young adult girls, and the Gabby Petito thing. Have you watched that? The police. Do you know who I'm talking about?
No.
So she and her boyfriend started this, cross country trek, and she was going to be a travel blogger. She was like 22, I think. And they show the boyfriend, several people saw him like hitting her, things like that. So the police come to their RV, and she is such a precious girl, and she is trying to do things right. And she was like, I'm OCD, and I was cleaning, and I'm working, and I need to calm down. And anyway, it ended up that there's a nationwide hunt for the boyfriend. He's missing, but she was murdered. And so watching that little video where like she's really nice and, she's trying to be nice. Mm-hmm. And it's like, at what point do you stand up for yourself and go, you know what, I can't, obviously they had a relationship that was abusive. Mm-hmm. And it's like, at what point do you just stand up for yourself and go, you know what, I don't have to be nice anymore. And so situations, and I think for young women, it's really hard because you're kind of taught to comply and go along, mm-hmm. and all of that. So I think, your mom, we're all in the same boat in trying to be nice.
Yeah.
And some of it is dangerous.
Yeah. I do feel like, I feel like we are, I guess, there are things that I think women today are teaching their children that I don't think were taught to my generation or even before, of certain things, because I can kind of see what I refer to usually as the man that says, that compliments a woman, like you look so beautiful. You're taught that that's a compliment. And when a stranger compliments you now, I feel like when a stranger compliments you, okay, that's a red flag.
Yeah. Yeah. And social media, you get all those DMs like, hey, beautiful. And I mean, because they're saying it like that. They're not saying, hey, you're beautiful.
Yeah.
They're not, you're creepy. And sometimes I think for young girls, obviously they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know those nuances yet, that this is probably not safe to even interact with. But yeah, they may consider it a compliment, but you really do have to teach them, like, that's just a manipulation.
And that's what I think it's so hard for, I guess, the older generation to understand, is because it's like they're stuck on I was taught this is what it means, that's what I mean. But I'm like, today, as like people are realizing that there's people that abuse that, and they're now prepared for that. And so instead of that being a compliment, they'd rather just be treated as an equal with a hi, how you doing?
Yes. And not if someone has an ulterior motive, it's like, you'd rather know that. Don't be all sneaky.
Yeah. It's just amazing, I guess, change, because it's hard. Like you're saying, your kids are probably wanting, all these changes in society, and they're clamoring for it. But I mean, it is, and it's just hard to tell them that it takes a long time for this kind of change, because there are a lot of people that silently don't want to change, and it's hard to get those people to either change or move on, pass on, or wherever their life takes them to kind of move forward, because we are moving forward slowly but steadily. There's a lot of things that I've seen over my lifetime that are getting better. It's just at the pace they're getting better is not something that the younger generation, with all the Amazon and being able to buy with one click and it be at your house 2 days later, it's just not there for a lot of social change. Social change isn't something you can get on Amazon.
No, not at all. Not at all. And it is, and you do see, like, I know a couple of people who are documentary filmmakers, and they did, it was called Seduced. It's on Nexium, that cult. You know what I'm talking about? Anyway, but there are a lot of things that are coming out, about the things that have gone on in Hollywood, of the Me Too movement and all of that. So things where there were a lot of systems in place that were very abusive to young women. And so, having a platform for people to say, hey, this is not right, and this happen. I think that's good. And I think for that's one start. It's just changing the behavior. Hopefully that'll go on and more will happen. So I know exactly what you're saying, but it's never fast.
Yeah. And also, I would say, just to be honest and just be like, okay, these are the things that are not okay, and just kind of say, hey, to the young men, I guess the next generation of young men, here are the do's and don'ts when it comes to instead of all this on the back end, and people like, well, maybe I feel like that would remove less doubt, and just kind of be like, okay, because if I had a young son, it would be hard to explain. It's like, it's hard to explain attraction and everything else, because it's such a fluid situation.
Yes, absolutely.
Where it's like, yeah, maybe they do like you, but that can also change, and you have to kind of be aware that it can change, and so you don't keep keep operating on the thing that she likes me, when maybe that has now waned, and there's like somebody else.
Yeah. It's those nuances, and girls are good at those subtle nuances.
Well, we all are, or we're programmed to be, because we're all pack animals, and so we have we have a lot of social nuances and body language stuff that some people pick up on, some people don't, and it's very you have to be very cautious and very aware, and also be able to, I guess, silently convey that your intent, and it's but with hand placements and body language. As someone that's not good at social cues, like I can't imagine, trying to teach like a son or a daughter, okay, when you give off these kind of vibes, this is how people will respond. So if they're avoiding you because you look nervous, it's because they don't want nervous energy in their group. And so you have to learn how to kind of harness that anxiety, so that they're not because your anxiety is telling them in basically caveman details that they're in danger. You're in danger, and so hanging out with you is putting them in danger. So they're not going to hang out with you, because if you're always scared, they don't want that feeling in that group, and so they're going to move on, and they're going to then pick at you. They're going to say things to you because they know you're scared, to get you away from them. It's just all primitive.
No. We had a dog. We live out in the country, and somebody dumped a dog out here, and we just loved it and thought it was so cute. But it had a seizure disorder, and the other dogs were so mean to it. I mean, like, they wouldn't let it be a part of their pack, and they would pick at it, and it was just awful. Bless its heart. We loved it. We loved the dog, but I know exactly what you're talking about. That happens, with people, and bless their hearts. We're supposed to be kind and gracious to people, and but I know what you're saying. It's a lot of interactions, and there's a lot of pressure on people these days to be a certain way that people maybe aren't necessarily like, and I think people, there are really people who are savvy and that know how to talk and are like, know how to schmooze. Like, those people seem to be elevated, and it's like some people with like a pure heart and real sweet may not know how to do all of that, and so they get overlooked, even though their intents and motives may be better than the schmoozy person. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's super hard to teach and to know how to process. Even as an adult, you just go, that's not right. It's not right at all that person gets to succeed and they're really horrible, but they appear okay.
Yeah. I would say as a society, we just need to learn to play to our strengths, and also I would say just be okay with not joining the pack and speaking up.
Right.
I feel so many people just will go along with, because again, we're pack animals, and so they don't want to be the center in the ranks, and so they will follow the group, and sometimes you have to tell a group, hey, this isn't right. Yeah,
absolutely. And, I love, so some of the things that I have loved in doing the podcast is, I have a guest that survived the El Salvadoran Civil War, and Iran. She was persecuted for her beliefs, and her church was hanged. And so, getting to see some people who really were super brave in standing up for other people, and just living out their value system, even when nobody else is doing it. It is pretty incredible to see that, and to be able to, that I get to share those stories. It's like, they didn't go with the pack. They went with their value system, and it really cost them something, but they felt like the cost was worth it.
Yeah.
And that's super important.
Absolutely. Kelly, I appreciate you doing this. This has been a great conversation. Where can people find Qavah or you on social media?
So it's qavahpodcast.com, and that's QAVAH podcast.com. And then Qavah the Podcast is our social media on, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
That is awesome. I appreciate you doing this. I look forward to more episodes where you're very inspiring.
Thank you. So are you, and you're very funny. And yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
Very funny.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Kelly. So that was Kelly. Man, what an interesting conversation to start with one fear and then just kind of loop it and find that it's actually linked to this other fear of the unknown, and how you can kind of go down the rabbit hole of other fears that you have that just kind of branch off like it's a tree of anxiety that you just run through. Kelly's an amazing podcaster. Check out her show, Qavah the Podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. It's definitely awesome. The Stuntman episode so far is my favorite. The one that basically is the Brad in the movie Brad Pitt was in with Quentin Tarantino. That's the character. The character's based off of him, and that's a really fascinating story. I just can't think of the movie right now, and I can't grab my phone. As for me, I just did a week of soft opening for TK's in Addison. It's a really, I guess, exclusive comedy club as far as like the clientele. Had a great time, met some new interesting people, and just got home and passed out like a responsible adult. As for me, I will be in Wichita after New Year's Eve. I'll be at Backdoor Comedy Club. Then I'll be in Wichita, Kansas. Then I'll be in Oklahoma City at the Looney Bins. And then Fort Worth, I will be recording my album and featuring for Rob Little. So check out those shows. I got more shows probably coming up as 2022 kicks off. With a roaring start, I'll have some new guests. And hopefully we'll have a great year on 2022. I'm hoping so. If you like what you hear, leave a review. That would be great. If you have feedback for the show, send me a message at somefearfans@gmail.com. That's going to do it for this week. Next week's Christmas, so I hope you guys have a happy holidays. I'll release an episode, and it'll be a fun season. And then New Year's Eve, I'll probably release Diego Rangel's for New Year. So thanks for listening to the Sum of All Fears podcast. Have a wonderful holidays. And now some thank yous for the folks that make this show possible. Thanks to Barry Whitewater for my art and graphics. You can follow him on Instagram at bwhiteh2o. Get it? H2O like water. You can also follow him on Facebook, Music. A huge thank you to Gunnar Olsen for the wonderful music provided for this podcast. You can follow him on Instagram at gunbuns, that's GUNBUNS, as well as his website, gunnarolsen.net. Check out some of the samples that he has recorded. They're amazing. He's an amazing percussionist. If you want to follow the show, we've got a Facebook group, Sum of All Fears. Instagram, Twitter, you can find us at Some Fear Fans. If you have some feedback for the show, email me at somefearfans, SOMEFEARFANS @gmail.com. I'll be happy to take those into consideration. Also, if you'd like to be a guest, email me at somefearfans@gmail.com. We can try to iron out some details and get that settled in. Give us some feedback. If on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts, leave a review. It makes the show bigger, and it's not going anywhere. I'm going to record as many shows as I possibly can. If you want to follow me on social media, I am at Ryan Perio. It's RyanPerrio on all social media platforms. You can follow me there, and you can check me out at ryanperio.com, my website. I'll try to list upcoming shows there as well. It's been kind of spotty because as soon as I set it up, that's when the pandemic happened. And everything's kind of just in a holding pattern. Thanks again for listening to the Sum of All Fears podcast. Next week, we'll have another guest with another fear. Thanks for listening.